Good afternoon, everybody. It's Donnie B. Got the Beats with my brother here, Nicholas Baker. We live on Two Flu West. We got a phenomenal episode, man. Tyler Street Films is in the building. We got Carlos Walker in the building, man. This is people that's putting on for the city, for putting on for the culture, man. I'm so proud and honored to have them sitting alongside us here at Two Flu West, man. So what's good, everybody?
What's good?
What's good? What's good?
Hey. Law, you in New York? Tiffany, where are you? You in Atlanta, right?
Atlanta.
All right, and Carlos,
Atlanta.
you in the DMV?
I'm in Virginia.
Hey man, okay, you in Virginia? Okay, so and Baker's up, he's up in Sac, and well, not sorry, Sac.
Matt, come on, man, slow it up.
You didn't say we're NorCal. We're gonna do NorCal. Well, we covered a lot of bases today, man. It's just real dope. It's real dope. How's everybody? Well, how's the weather where everybody is, man?
Oh man, beautiful.
Beautiful.
Not as good as where you guys are, but we'll take it.
It's a beautiful
We had
day
a
in
little
Atlanta.
bit of rain. We had some rain this morning, but the sun is back, so I won't complain at all.
All right.
Carlos, what your weather look like?
The sun out.
Nope.
We shining.
That's what we coming at. Tiffany, how you? What your weather look like?
Beautiful day in Atlanta. It's a beautiful day in the ATL.
Yeah, it's always like this day, regardless of what day it is in Atlanta, man. The work is down for sure. So, what you got, Baker? Talk to us, man. Let's see what we got with these glorious people here, man. Today.
Well, listen, I'm excited about this show. I think we're gonna have some really good conversation around some tough topics, but that's what we do. We want to kind of unpack some things and really have some quality conversation. So I'm excited about this. But to get us started, I want to give you guys a chance to kind of just introduce yourselves. Who you are, what you do. We'll start with Carlos. Go ahead and give us just introduction. Let the people know who you are, what you do.
Okay, I'm an artist, formerly person who was incarcerated for selling drugs. I came out, while I was incarcerated, I learned a lot about Black history. And while I was there, I did 13 years. So seeing the Trayvon Martin, the Eric Garner and all that stuff, while I was there, this is where I created Walk a Mile in Our Shoes and You'll Understand From Whence We Came, which is my series of 53 illustrations of artwork, and the book What If, which is based on African American history, but what you see is a twist to it, which is basically like flipped. You see white people in African American positions, and this is what I do. I'm an artist, author, someone who's just trying to get the work out to change the culture. I'm tired of seeing the African American people get killed. So this is what I bring to the table.
Awesome.
So Tyler Street Films, like Tiffany, Law, whoever wants to start, we'll say Tiffany, you can start.
Yeah, ladies first.
I think I'm frozen. Can y'all hear me all right?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
You got
Okay.
a little bit of frozen with your screen, but we can definitely hear you.
Okay, perfect. I'm Tiffany L. Burgess, and I'm 1/3 of Tyler Street Films. Based in Atlanta, Georgia. By day, public health professional. By night, a writer and an actress. And very big on health equity, on social justice, on basically anything that's related to building up my people. So thank you for having me. Appreciate you guys.
Of course.
Cool,
Yes.
partner.
There you go.
She froze, and Tiffany, she frozen in the wrong thing. That was so funny.
Oh no.
And
Hold on.
the funny thing is, normally I'm the one whose internet be like freezing up, and I'm like,
Mhm.
everybody, I'm notorious for that.
Way to
Yeah.
stick
He
in
was
the
ready today. And look, he put the
I was
router.
ready.
He put the router by his chair today. He said, "I ain't ready."
I'm Lawrence Watford, writer and director, and producer, and 1/3 of Tyler Street Films. And that's like Tiffany said, we like just telling stories in general, but obviously have a clear eye towards stories that relate to some of the pertinent issues of the day affecting our folks, affecting Black people and marginalized people, and trying to develop a platform and a voice to speak to those issues on a larger scale.
Right. Right. And I mean, effectively, all of you guys have a pristine knack for being able to share that and share your vision as far as what people need to call attention to. It's awesome. That definitely big fans of your work, man. Seriously.
Thank you.
So jumping in, like definitely one of the things that we lost Tiffany, but
She'll be back.
Back in. One of the things that we really wanted to like bring the two creatives together for was the projects that you have out. Carlos, you talked about What If, and Tyler Street Films has a film called Flipped. So we named the show today What If It Flipped. And we really want to just kind of talk about like the concepts that you have in your project. And then we'll get a little deeper into some other pieces and topics as well. But I really wanted to kind of start off with like, how did you come up with the concepts for the projects? Like for your different perspective, different projects, how did you come up with the concept? Or how did the concept come about? Laura, you can start. Yeah, Cola start last time.
Okay, cool. Particularly with Flip, Tiffany and I both mentioned that we're both 1/3 of Tyler Street. Jack Manning, the third, is the other third of Tyler Street. Shout out to Jack, fellow Hamptonian. And it was a few years back. He'd, was out in New York. He was doing some photography, actually for Robin Thede. And he had called me up to meet him in the city. He said, yeah, I had an idea. So I was like, all right, cool. So, I met him out in the city, and he downloaded this idea for a story about, again, this sort of flipped reality that in part was based on his experiences being the minority, the Black kid in a white environment out in Michigan. And so, he had this whole kind of storyline that, like you saw, takes place basically, which is to follow a day in the life of a high school kid and all the micro and macro aggressions that this person has to endure. But, what if we flipped it? And from there, he brought on Tiffany, who hopefully should be able to get back in. Brought on Tiffany to write it. Tiffany had actually written a children's book. And actually she recently completed another one. But he brought her on to write, and they worked on the first draft of the script. And he was like, yeah, as soon as things get done, I'll reach back out. And I was like, all right, cool, whatever, because everybody's saying, yeah, I'm gonna do something. You're like, all right, cool, yeah. But sure enough, it was like, maybe a year or some months after that, he's like, yeah, I got the script, take a look. And I think I got some people who are willing to like put some money into it. And we went from there.
Awesome.
So, Carlos, how did you come up with kind of the concept for your project, What If?
Okay, as I just mentioned, I was incarcerated for like 13 years. So in the midst of me being incarcerated, I learned about Black history. And I'm going to actually say that God actually gave me something. My father and my mother came to see me one Sunday, and I was like deeply distraught when they came to see me after the fact. So I go back to the cell. I'm like on my knees in the cell praying. I'm like, yo, hey, God, I can't sell drugs no more. I was like, give me something that'll help me make money, help me change my life. And next thing I know, 2 months later, I'm coming from the chow hall, and I look back and I see it's a Black guard and it's a white inmate cutting grass directly in front of him. The Black guard is standing in like a military position with his hands behind his back. So I looked and I tell my friend, I was like, yo, hey, this look like this could be a black slave master and a white slave. He looked, he said, yo, I can see that. 2 months later, I do my first picture. And 3.5 years later, I created 50 pictures. And it was all based on the concept of whites being out in our position and us being in their position. And I started this in 2014, and I'm still adding on to it now.
Yeah. Yeah, and gotta say, brother, your work it speaks for itself, man. Like seriously, you know, and I dabble in the medium myself too, brother. Like it definitely helps you capture emotion with every single one of your visuals, man. So big fan of what you do, man. Seriously.
I appreciate that.
Of course, of course.
Awesome.
And Tiff, we just got you back, obviously. No worries, welcome back. The question was, how did the concept for the project come about?
Okay. Law, did you already provide some insight?
Just you know, with the initial idea with Jack, but you can go into detail about kind of, you know, what happened after you and Jack.
Did we lose Carlos now?
I think we did lose him. I don't know what's going on with the connections today. I usually never lose my connections. It's Law is right. It's usually Law, and then I'm usually texting like, where are you? And so it's karma. God don't like ugly. So Law will never fuss at you again. Because I was like panicking. I was like, this is unbelievable. But Jack talked to me about it. Was Jack's concept. He's actually coming back from LA today. He's out in LA. He's the other third, and the creator Flipped. And I just written a children's book, and he talked to me about writing the script, of course, with his and Law's input. And just, you know, we wanted to basically tell the story and have somebody, you know, it's kind of difficult to really explain things to folks. So we thought by, you know, putting this story out there visually, this film, that folks would have an opportunity to walk a mile in our shoes and just for a second experience some of the microaggressions, experience some of the frustrations we experience as African Americans, especially African American males. And that was really just how it came together. And then, you know, we have you walking through it, and you're following this young teenage, you know, white boy in a different society. And then, you know, without giving it away for those maybe it's not out there. I mean, it's out there, but for folks who maybe haven't seen it. And then we kind of, you know, flip the script on you, literally. And that's pretty much how it came about. It was Jack's idea, and he pulled me and Lawrence in, and then we just formed a whole company and team and have more projects coming.
Can I ask you a question really quick? Tiffany, is with specificity to writing, like you said, for to put on a grander stage the Black male narrative of what they encounter, because and let me know, and I guess that's the question that I'm asking you, is do you perceive there to be this agenda to really push, and I'm not saying that I disagree or it shouldn't be, but they seem to push a lot of feminine agenda as far as from a woman's perspective or a Black woman's perspective of a lot of these things going on. Do you feel that writing this flipped, and you know, to put the Black male narrative on a grander scale, do you feel that is it troubling, or is it, and do you see a need for it in a verse, or is it something even worth noting in comparison?
I definitely feel like there's a need for it. I'm the youngest of four and the only girl. I have 3 older brothers. So Lawrence and Jack fit in nice. I'm used to being the only female in my crew. So with my brothers, with my father, with my 4 nephews, and I had my own experiences. With like just even the bathroom scene, you know, Lawrence and I joke about it because initially he was like, it's too long, we gotta cut that out, Tiff. I was like, oh no, we will not, because even though this is, you know, I really want to make sure we tell the story from a Black male perspective, but it really was the Black American experience, not just Black men, the Black female, Black mothers. And so I definitely think putting folks in the shoes of Black folks in general, and then particularly our Black men, so you can see what it's like to go in a store. And we know it happens. You know, my nephews talked about it. It's happened to me. You know, my brothers have talked about it. And you're followed around just simply because you're a Black man and your skin is seen as a weapon. You know, and so it's definitely important as Black women that when we paint these pictures and if we're tasked with writing these stories, that we write them and tell them honestly, and support Black men when it comes to helping to tell their story and get it out there for, you know, the rest of the world to see. I think it's part of our responsibility as Black women.
I love that. I love that.
I love
that.
So listen, guys, both groups and entities have created these powerful projects. What impact do you hope these projects have on either the reader or the viewer? Like, what's the impact you're looking for? Especially as, you know, when I think about it, like what impact would you want like Black Americans to have, or, you know, maybe a white American, if they're watching or reading, or, you know, any other race? Like, what impact do you hope these projects have? And that's a free question. Anybody can kind of pop in. We can popcorn it. We about to start really getting into the panel,
Okay.
really true conversation. So, you know, let's dive in. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us on our end, it's just empathy. You know what I mean? Like, you know, sometimes you could, I don't know, sometimes you can tell somebody something, but until you show them, they don't necessarily know. Like, which is why, like, for example, we're dealing with George Floyd's murder and the conviction of Derek Chauvin right now. But when that happened, you know, we were telling people long ago, but they just didn't know until they saw something. And not only did they have to see something, because I'm like, well, you didn't see Philando Castile, you didn't see Eric Gardner, you didn't see Tamir Rice, you didn't see John Crawford, you didn't see et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think you have to tell them and show them something that, for whatever reason, whatever formula you use to do it, just grabs that heart. If you don't grab the heart, it's almost like a lot of white Americans, exactly, Carlos. A lot of white Americans have been cool with cognitive dissonance. You know what I mean? Like, just compartmentalizing. You'll tell them something, they'll acknowledge it on one end, but on the other end of the brain, they're computing about ways to I don't know, lessen or, you know, refute what it is that you just informed them. So yeah, I think to really get to create that empathy where it's like, oh shit, I can't deny it because my heart is tugging at me on this one, you know.
Right.
I want to piggyback off what he just said. I don't know if y'all have ever read the 48 Laws of Power.
Of course.
Okay.
There's
a part in this book is the mirror effect. And in it, I'm not going to be able to quote it directly, but what he says is basically that to emulate what has happened to you is basically to be able to show them what has happened to you, but with them in their position. After reading that book, and then, because I hadn't read the book till after I drew these, but I understood it more after the fact, because when I read it and I implemented my pictures, I understood how if you never show a person what your life is like with them in your shoes, or if they never feel or have ever been in your shoes, if they don't see themselves in it, they'll never be able to understand or connect with you.
Right.
So with us, the people who did flip, and with me, being that we created these things, what it shows is white people being in our position. Me personally, I've came across many white people. I show it to them all the time, and the first thing that comes to their mind, I never thought of it that way. And to me, how could you never think of you being I'm a Libra, so maybe that's the reason why I think of these things. But I see myself in other people's shoes. I didn't just do like the what if or the walk a mile in our shoes. I also did women and men. I only did 6 pictures of this, but I put women in men's position. And it's because of I understand what we as a people have been through. They say that the people who have been through something, they have a deeper understanding of things, and that's what I understand, and that's the same thing that I can see that they understand. You know what I mean?
Of course.
we think different. We've been through different things as a people. So what we do, we let's think of it in this aspect. With the Asian hate, you've seen a lot of black people go to the forefront of that just because we have been through oppression.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? They very seldom come to ours. During the midst of the last 4 years, you've seen a lot of Asian hate towards black people. Them beating on black women, which has infuriated me. I'm not one that's gonna go to their aid. I'm look, call it what you want to, but if you can't do the same for us, I don't feel that we should do the same.
All right, man. I don't disagree with your argument, Carlos. And the fact, I mean, I think the dope thing about the you guys are visually, you guys are creative, like visual creatives. You guys give a visual narrative as far as what people can follow. They can actually see what it is that you're putting out there. And coming from Baker and my perspective, we're audio creators. You know, we've done recording work and stuff like that. So we have to paint the picture without it. You have to almost see it in your mind's eye.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing is exactly what you say. It's like, you know, they can't connect with you if they never walked that path. And I think that's the reality of what all of the stuff that's going on, is that there's not a lot of self-reflection. People don't see themselves in the stuff that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so to have, you know, creators such as yourselves or ourselves to be able to perpetuate what's going on for people to see, I think, you know, it needs to be more widely accepted. Well, not accepted, but widely
Exposed.
you know what I mean? So I definitely understand your point. It definitely, you know, I dig everything that what you and Tyler Street is saying, for sure. Seriously.
I would also like to throw a point out, or just it's a question, and then I'll kind of give my perspective on it. But like, I think we talked a lot about like what you guys want to see, like the impact for, I think, mainly like white, let's say Americans, or white people watching or reading the book or watching the film. But again, like, so let's say me as a black male, what would you hope the impact would be for me? I'm looking at your projects. What do you think the impact should be for me
as a black person?
Mm-hmm.
As a black male?
As a black male, what do you hope the impact is for me?
I hope you feel seen and heard, and that your story is told.
Okay.
And that's always my goal. And I think I can speak for the entire Tyler Street Films team. We hope black men feel like our stories are honest and have their back, and they feel that black men feel seen and heard, and like, oh, somebody's telling our plight, and it's not sugar coated, it's not a caricature, it's not, it's not something, not to talk about other portrayals, but it's not something that's it's written by black folks, and two black men are on the team leading the charge. So I hope that it feels something, black men feel like it's something they can resonate with, and it's honest. That's the biggest thing for me too, is that it's an honest portrayal.
Yeah. Carlos, you were about to say something?
Yeah, mine is not just for black men.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is for black people, period. And what I want them to see is their history. I really, really didn't, I guess you could say, learn black history until I was incarcerated. And what I learned is that a lot of black women are on the forefront, and they take the burden, the brunt of the burden, probably the most, because guess what? They birth these children, they do the whole nine. For me personally, as a black male, I hate to see that. Yes, it is massive black men being killed, but I understand that there's a burden on all of us as a people. We've been, we've had, when you speak of PTSD, we probably got it the most out of everybody. You got people to go to the army, and yes, they see killings, they see everything. We see this, we have seen this, just say for our generation alone, for the last, just say, what you want to call it, 12, 13, 14, 15 years, consecutively. over and over again. We're seeing killing after killing after killing. And what does that go into our mind state? How does it bother us as a people? So for me, as a black man, what is meant for our black people, I want us to understand our history and how special we are as a people. For you to go through anything as a people, you should be able to see yourself as great, because even though we have went through slavery, went through Jim Crow, and we have went through mass incarceration on top of all of these killings, what we can say is that we have almost endured everything and still made it, or still going to extreme heights. So what I want us to see when you see my artwork, or even when you watch Flip, don't just think about the traumatic experiences. Think about the way we as a people have still grown in spite. Our history is hell. We probably one. I hate to say this, but we're probably one of the most specialist people out here.
No, and I appreciate the fact that y'all touched on those points, and I think it's super important to always go to that side as well, because like I think we can tend to say like, I want to show, a white person what they don't seem to get, right? And we take that plight on ourselves and that burden on ourselves to have to teach. And that's, it's a clip out. I think it's Donahue where they had Minister Farrakhan on. I think it's Donahue, may not be.
I think so.
And this is like over 20 years ago, I believe. And he's just talking about, he made a comment on that, and he said, how many like white people in the audience would want to be in a black person's shoes, right? And it's just like nobody was quick to raise their hand. And it's like they say they say there's an understanding, but a lot of times there's not.
Right.
And I think about how long ago that was, and still to this day, we're trying to make people understand. Like, let me try another route. Let's make it a little more explicit. Like, we thought like seeing like Rodney King being on film would be like, oh, okay, now we're getting it. Now they're gonna see. But it was like, oh no, it's still not sinking in, right? And I think we sometimes can get caught in that plight of I gotta make you get it. But the work that y'all did is still impactful for Black people as well. Like what you said, Tiffany, what you said, being seen, knowing that your story is being told in a true and honest way, it is super impactful. As a Black male, I can speak for myself. It was super impactful for both of your projects. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, this is what it is like for real. There's no like sugarcoating this or fluff. Like this is what it is. You know what I mean? And to feel like I'm being represented in film or in art, it does tend to like help push forward. You know what I mean? I still think there's a lot of conversations that need to be had, but I think using art is another way that we can really like push the narrative, push the understanding, so that we can get to the conversations. Because I think conversations still have to happen, even if when finally people get it, then we need to have the conversations. So I really appreciate that side of like, kind of your work as well.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead, Bob.
Well, I was just about to say, even like piggybacking off of that, it's so funny. I was talking with my wife and just about kind of the amount of like sort of trauma that we gotta absorb, you know what I mean? And now that we're having these conversations, right? Because that's what we wanted. Like we want to do these things so that we can get the minds turning, so that we can have these conversations. And hopefully having moved somebody from a point of ignorance to a point of information, right? At least a floor of information. But like now I'm actually starting to become aware of the third level of trauma, which is almost in some ways, I don't know, as significant, maybe more significant than us actually seeing the videos of the brutality, right? Now we have the trauma that comes with having to evaluate the ways in which white folks are responding to our interpretations or our honest conversations about the trauma, right? So not only did we see what happened to George Floyd, right? Not only did we have to internalize that, not only did we have to march, not only did we have to do all those things, but now we have X, Y, and Z corporations doing this. We have people at our workplace doing that. We have people wanting to be quote unquote allies. We have people who are woke, and then now we have to evaluate whether or not is that really woke? Is that really allyship? This is wrong. This is wrong, and it takes on a whole new level of trauma because then you find yourself dealing with the trauma that comes from the intimate conversations where you really see the honesty in people, which sometimes is not nice. In fact, Tiffany can speak to this. Last week we were on a call with Iowa State where we showed Flip, and some of the conversations that came out of there was a part of their diversity, equity, and inclusion seminars or work that they were doing. And some of the conversations that come out of there, it's like, it's kind of traumatic to hear those things. Tiffany, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Well, yeah, I think, first of all, I think the conversations are necessary, but I feel like, and I'll just say this quickly. We were having this discussion in a group meeting with some friends of mine who are all actors and actresses and producers and things here in Atlanta. And we were talking about this idea of Black trauma because some folks don't want to watch anything that they consider Black trauma, and they didn't want to watch the show Them. And my partner and I were saying it's part of our reality. And maybe we should rebrand the trauma as triumph, because we're really talking about how we've overcome and all the stuff we have to overcome, but we can't ignore it and act like it doesn't happen because it's difficult and awkward and uncomfortable. It's the reality. So maybe we can move away from the idea of this word trauma and discuss and make it really about our triumph and how we've surmounted all these obstacles. But to Lawrence's point, the question posed was, why don't they just comply? And if the police and the person didn't look like us, I'm 99% sure who asked the question was like, if the police asked me to get on the ground, I'm getting my butt on the ground. If the police asked me to do X, Y, and Z, I'm doing it. So, half the time they're hopped up on drugs. And so, and we were talking, so Lawrence and Jack and I all responded. And I said, you know what? This idea of compliance, I actually do believe you should comply. If you're stopping, you actually break the law. But you also, whether you comply or you don't, have the right to live. Like, you should be able to go to jail and still be breathing. Like, if you stop me, and I don't comply, especially for a nonviolent offense, like a traffic stop or a fake $20 bill, or you feel like I had a warrant out for a little weed, whatever, can I go to jail? Can I live? So, and I said, the other issue is, it doesn't matter if we comply or not, because we see a lot of videos of people who don't look like us, who don't comply and do just fine. They're still taken in alive. One shot up an entire church in Charleston and was taken to the Burger King before a stop on the way to jail. And you want to talk about compliance? So I definitely was passionate in my response. I think Lawrence did a much better job being diplomatic. But Lawrence, I want you to. He really brought it home with bringing up the insurrection, and I'll let him say what he shared that I think shut down the whole. Why don't they, meaning Black folks, just comply? Oh no, he's on mute. There you are.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, my point to her was that, there are two things. Like, one, police are there to protect you as a white person. They're there to serve and protect you. They demonstrate that every day. They demonstrate that in the videos we see where people who look like you, white folks, get to carry guns, get to hold guns, get to put their hands on their guns when negotiating with police officers, get to defy police officers, get to walk around and chase police officers with knives and guns, and police continue to do everything they can to preserve that white life. Like, they plead, you can hear it in the pleas of these officers. Like, please put it down, man. Just put it down, man. You know what I mean? They're there to serve and protect you. They're there to control us. They're there to protect you from us, right? So the way that they police us is very different. And yes, we all love to live in that reality, that world where she lives in, where, hey, Officer Jim, hey, Billy, it's that kind of thing. And it's, leave it to Beaver version of America. But it's just not the case. And, when we talk about compliance, we had the insurrection on January the 6th. Whole lot of white folk who was not complying. Whole lot of it on video. Not only were they not compliant, they were violent. They actually killed an officer. Right? There was no Blue Lives Matter then. It didn't matter then. There was no blue lives. They killed an officer. They injured dozens of other officers. Right? Yet there was only one black woman. One white woman who was killed. And even that was unacceptable. That was a travesty. She was a patriot.
Yes.
So, the idea of complying, again, even just thinking about, Carlos and his work, like, imagine what that picture would look like. You know what I mean? Had it been reversed and you had a black dude with buffalo ears waving American flag, having stolen the Speaker of the House's computer, which is espionage. You know what I mean? Like, it's like all sorts of craziness. So
you would have seen a massacre.
You would have seen a massacre.
You would have been
Absolutely.
We wouldn't even made it up the steps.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But how much of that would you guys say? Because again, I guess maybe I'm a radical, I guess, in my thinking. Would you say when you start talking about things of that nature? I look absolutely at Jim Crow and how far Jim Crow has got us, right?
It's still here.
I'm sorry.
It's still here.
Exactly. That's my point. Mm-hmm. But we are in that, and as you mentioned, PTSD from Jim Crow, right? There are actual governmental documents, not even just from the U.S., but from like the Soviet Union and other nations, as far as how to destabilize the nation. And I think realistically, if you take those doctrines and you juxtapose them against what's going on with Black folk, you can see exactly that we are destabilized. Period. And so when I see that creators such as Carlos Walker or Tyler Street Films, and they put out these things to educate the people, we're like, oh, you know what I'm saying? It's just a fallacy. Oh, it's just entertainment. And at some point in time, to me, I'm like, well, this is education. You need to educate yourself. You don't know everything. You are hoping for an economy. You're hoping for a society as to where these things are perpetuated and all things are created equal, which is reality. That is not the case. Mm-hmm. Wake up. Mm-hmm. And that's my definition of woke instead of, I can quote Black, statistics. Mm-hmm. That's great. You can. I can't. But I can tell you that things are unequal, right? Mm-hmm. I can tell you that things are jacked up. I can point you to news clippings where actual things are going on, whereas your numbers are great, but I have not experienced those numbers because those numbers are just numbers to me, right? Mm-hmm. So, do you feel that there is a truth into what I'm saying? Do you feel that it's literally, like you said, just one of those things as to where it's like, okay, these things are happening, and we need to just keep perpetuating these images, and then hopefully people catch it. How do you feel about it?
Me personally, I look at things of this nature. With my art, I am actually trying to show what happens to us, but I am actually about to create another whole part to this series that shows our triumph, as she just spoke. And my idea is this: for us as Black people, we have to understand our history first and foremost. A lot of us, we look at the traumatic experience and we choose not to deal with the idea. We, matter of fact, let's look at it this way: we look at roots, and because we look at it and see it, and we have a feeling, we don't want to deal with it. The Jews they take the Holocaust and they tell each generation about the Holocaust. But their reason in doing so is to make sure that their kids and their kids' kids know that, look, this is what happened to us, and this is what you need to do to make sure this never happened. We choose not to do that as a people. We don't even want to deal with our history because guess what? It hurts too much. We are an affectionate people who choose not to want to deal with our feelings. I don't care about feelings. Look at your traumatic experience and understand that guess what? You have an obligation to do better. And unless that happens to us, guess what? We don't move past this. If all we are doing is just looking at our experience and just saying, I don't want to share. Matter of fact, my parents was 8. Well, my father before he passed was 80. And my mother, she is 78 now. And this is the thing. They never shared their story with me. They never shared that they was in Jim Crow, literally. They couldn't go and buy stuff out of stores. So with me, because I didn't really pay attention or didn't understand that, or we don't have a true understanding of that fact, guess what happens to us? We grow up and we sell drugs because we are only trying to make a better way for ourselves as a person, not as a community or either as a family instead of a community. But because we do not have these understandings, we try to do things that's not community based. Yes, some people have those factions together. For your most part, the reason why you got this stuff, you got to look at our music. You got to look at the only way movies are, the only way some actors are able to get in certain movies are to play bad situations. And what we do, we follow those situations. We are a perpetuation of what they put out.
Exactly.
You have people who have the Jews pretty much run Hollywood basically, but we ain't just gonna say that. We just gonna say white people. But because they run these fields, they're only gonna allow you to put certain stuff out into the media where it takes off. And you look at most of our music. I love rap to death. I grew up off of it. I'll be 40 this year. But because of this, guess what has happened? You've had a lot of people incarcerated because the rap music went from uplifting a community to detrimental. You look at your movies. Most of our movies are technically based on drug dealing or either some type of detriment. Is nothing that's progressive. And because of such, guess what happens to us as the majority? The majority gonna take that and run with it and do what we do. We gonna either sell drugs. Well, let me take that back because the majority of your black people do not sell drugs. Majority of your black people actually go to work. But you do have a faction that actually don't understand fiction from reality or reality from bullcrap. And because of such, this is what you get. You're gonna get those that were like me that go to prison. But unless we literally use art, as you just said earlier, to push this out, you can speak it, and that's cool because that's art in itself. But people need to see themselves in different positions in order to make a change.
Right. And being the fact that if you have association with Hollywood, association with trying to get things placed with the major, they do follow a narrative, and there is a perpetuation of it wholeheartedly. They have to be able to see you or see this entity, this group, this way in order for it to compel their narrative. So I agree with you 1000%, and we have to be careful with that. We do.
So with that, like kind of like where you were going, but I want to throw this question out there. It's kind of our next question, but what do you think it will take for true change to happen in our society when it comes to like racism? Like, I think a lot of things have happened. I think there's a lot of different approaches people have taken, but what will it take for it truly to change? Like for us to really see like, okay, things have truly taken a turn. Because like I said, I feel like, I saw the Donahue clip again, and that's over 20 some years ago. And we were talking about the same thing that we're talking about right now. So like, I think we've had moments where we think it's changing and, we've got to gain some ground and it feels good, but then not really. Like, what is it going to take for it to truly change, or can it change?
I mean, I think, we were also talking today with my wife, and I was wondering, we were talking about Disney World, and apparently, like they're renaming certain rides. Like, was it Splash Mountain is being renamed because it was from the film Song of the South, and then there was some other character from some 1930s Disney movie that was at the theme park somehow, and and maybe even Pirates of the Caribbean because they had an auction of like women or something like that. And I don't know if that's necessarily a change that I cared about. In all honesty, right? I didn't need for Splash Mountain. That's not consequential, right? And one of the things that I do not think will contribute to change is what I would interpret as token change, right? Like Disney, you could have done that and didn't announce it, right? Because was nobody like, man, I would go to Disney World, but that Splash Mountain is for the Song of the South that was made in 1947, and we don't know, right? So I think token allyship, it hurts us.
Yes.
But what I am interested in is, Disney, you really want to do something? Why don't you have more Black people managing the park? You know what I mean? That's a huge enterprise. You know what I mean? Because I'm interested to see, even with the changes that we've seen in Hollywood and corporate America, opening up new positions for Black people. Unfortunately, all the positions seem to be diversity, a Black person at the head of diversity, right? So, I'm interested to see generationally what that means. Years from now, if we've opened up more economic opportunity, because, and we've talked about Ice Cube in the past and his, contract with Black America, pros and cons, and but one thing I think that was a fundamental truth is we elevate based on our ability to participate fully in the economy. You know what I mean? Unhindered by lack of opportunity and hurdles. So I think if we can continue to do that, then generationally things will change. You know what I mean? You will see less gentrification when you have more Black people who can actually afford to stay in the neighborhoods that are becoming gentrified. You know what I mean? Those schools consequentially won't be as segregated because now the Black people who live there can't afford to live there, and now only the white people can live there. And then now that school that was historically Black, you know what I mean, where the Black national anthem was the theme, is no longer that. You won't have to deal with those things anymore if we have access to those economic opportunities, and then can from there create other opportunities. We can continue to grow and groom others. So I think that to me is one of the primary drivers of change. I think that's what it'll take to change, to be honest, because we live in a country that's capitalist, and I mean, they value money. Money is power. Money speaks. Money provides opportunity. Money provides the opportunity to say no to having to work every day for somebody so that you can not work and pursue an opportunity. You know what I mean? So that you can save up and invest. You want to play Robinhood? You can't buy Dogecoin unless you have an extra, 50, 60, 70, bucks to just say, hey, let me play with Robinhood. But if you don't have that because you have to buy food, so those are the two things that I think.
Yeah, I want to give everybody else the opportunity because I'm going to just keep taking it. So feel free.
I mean, I think dismantling the current structure, because racism is structural. It's institutionalized. I even think about public health perspective and health equity, and wanting people to eat healthy, and especially Black folks. But then we have food deserts in Black neighborhoods. This right here in Atlanta, there's so many food deserts, and it's like, well, I want you to make sure you have nice fruit for your kids, but then there's no decent fruit or decent grocery stores in a Black neighborhood, but there's a McDonald's in every fried chicken chain. So you can continue to watch us die of diabetes and hypertension. So it's like all of it. I mean, it has to be dismantled. And I like Jack, our partner, used the words reimagining or reimaging. One of the words he used was one of those, as far as like the police department, tearing the whole thing down and rebuilding it so that it's equitable. And, Law had talked about having these systems of equity that are, these equitable systems. And there's this idea that no matter what race you are, this isn't going to change. Like this system is not going to lean here. Here's a system, and it doesn't matter what race you are. But in order to do that, it all has to be torn down. It has to be torn down. You have to, and then rebuilt, which is, I don't know. I'm 41. I'll be 42 in August. I don't know if I'll see that in my lifetime. My grandparents lived to be 90 and 92. They got to see the first Black president, which was a blessing, but they definitely didn't see racism be, dismantled or removed. And they had a lot of stories. My parents are 76 and 78, and they have a lot of stories.
Mm-hmm.
So at one point, my dad was like, my goodness, it's during the Trump era. He was like, I feel like we are literally going backwards. Like I'm watching things that I saw happen years ago. He was like, and this is, I probably can't use the word he used, but he just expressed his disdain for what he was watching unfold.
I want to hear the word. Say the word.
My dad, he's geeky and he's that accent. He just says whatever he wants to say, and he's just he was very clear in what he thought was some BS, and watching us walk, go backwards. And he was like, this just doesn't make any sense. So I just don't. I say that to say, if he's 78, I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime, but hopefully we'll see some growth and some change and some systems being torn down and rebuilt equitably. Because I mean, you can't, policy change is a big, I know people, especially Black folk, we do need to do some things internally as a group. I'm talking about outside of us. I'm talking about things that the other things that need to be checked. Policy is a big deal. That's how a lot of our stuff gets us. People don't want to vote. They don't want to vote in the local elections. They don't even realize how much that's impacting. I'm not talking about the presidential. I'm like, you guys, you don't want to go vote for this right here that's happening right here in your city. We have to have some policy change, in order to really start and have some people a seat at the table. That's the reality. You can't get, we don't want to sit at their table. Yes, we do. We want to sit at the table. Where's our seat? That's how, don't be like, we build our own table. Yes, but we also need a seat at this table. Like, don't think we don't need a seat at the table to make these changes. So, that's what happened with the civil rights movement. We can't act like it was all Black folk. We had some allies. We had a seat at some tables and some people really forward-thinking African Americans who realized we got to be able to reach across the aisle to get us where we need to go. And also lift us up as a group, as a whole, and mobilize us, and work on our internal stuff, keep our internal stuff between us. We like to air our dirty laundry nowadays. That's not what we used to do. We keep it within Black folk in our churches and things and work on us. But then we get in front of other folks who don't look like us. That's when it's like, let's reach across the aisle and get some people in place. The Andrew Youngs, and of course, you got Martha King and the Malcolm X's and the John Lewis's, you know what I mean, who were able to mobilize and help us get move through. You guys here in Atlanta, I'm the last thing I'm gonna say about it. Do you realize here in Atlanta, with the election, because y'all know Georgia ain't been blue in forever, and when I say the reason why we flipped it is because we mobilized us. John Lewis was so big. Stacey Abrams, John Lewis's county, Clay County. We knew when Clayton County hadn't been counted yet, we who lived here, we were like, because we know who lives in Clayton County and looks like us. And Stacey Abrams and that team, I have a girlfriend, Dashika Ruffin, they were big on getting us out to vote so that we could flip this state. They're so mad that we were able to do that because they know the implications and the policy changing when we start to have a voice. And now they want to change the voting laws. Yes. That's how powerful our vote. That's what I'm like, when people don't understand how important the Black vote is, watch Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that, I mean, that's the last thing I'm gonna say. Policy change I'm very passionate about that.
I get it. I get it.
We gotta get Tiffany's dad on three-way so we can hear what he says.
I like it. Thank you, Lord.
Hear what he had to say.
Baker, you wanna jump in before I have commentary because I prefer.
I mean, go ahead and drop your commentary. Go ahead. Unless you got something.
You know me, I'll be cooking, bro. Like I got steam coming up. Like, look, I think the biggest. So again, when we start talking about the agenda, right? We start talking about the agenda for our people. I think the biggest thing that everybody talking about is racism. Whether or not it's hidden, seen, whatever, it's so forth and so on. It's racist. But I think the biggest alienation for our culture in America is classism. That is it. Once people understand that, you understand how to triage the wounds and work backwards, with merit. And I think that the thing about it is that with all of these things being said, understanding that classism is a very serious problem in America, and people will defend their position in their class more so than anything.
Mm-hmm.
They will kill you for it.
Question. Is classism the twin sister or brother in your mind of racism? Because to me, they go hand in hand.
I think it's less. I think racism is less. I think it's subordinate. And the only reason why I say that is because at the end of the day, did you have people like a Spike Lee or a Tyler Perry or somebody who has financial means but still is looked at and not like, oh, okay, well, I mean, that's just so forth and so on. Well, you got these people that you ain't never be heard of, but that bank account be like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they gonna do what they gonna do, and it is so.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest thing that I like, at least with me and Bigger, no, with my kids, when I talk to them, I literally just had a conversation with my oldest about the power of money. Mm-hmm. And she's like, Daddy, like, well, love is it don't require money. Honey, listen, we're in a world that you have to really kind of wake up with life. And you need to understand the importance of money. I'm not saying that you need to be down by money, but you need to understand the importance of it and where you stand with it. Mm-hmm. And I think when people really start to understand it, just like I do when Donald Trump was like, hey, I'm going to run for president. I was like, yep, he got it. I said it when Baby Bush was like, hey, I'm going to run for president. Oh, he got it. Immediately. I without a shadow of a doubt, I was like, well, they're going to win. And I think at the end of the day, I think when people really get educated, going back to the first conversation, the first question, when people really start to kind of look at the perspective of where they stand, where do you lie on the Gantt chart? When we start talking about finance, we start talking about relevance, we start talking about the whole nine. How do we mobilize from there? And I think that's what because again, you get people like you said, and I agree with you. Like Atlanta is definitely in the forefront of the movement for Black people with regard to how to mobilize and how to educate and get yourselves moving. Because again, America's waiting on Atlanta or Georgia, like y'all gonna do.
Yeah.
Did it, and y'all came through. It's like, thank you, Georgia. But again, it's not just Georgia. It's not just on Georgia. There's plenty of other Black folk everywhere else. You know what I mean? Well, I'm saying all that to say when I'm looking at stuff as far as everything that we've been talking about, what Carlos has been experiencing, what Law has been experiencing, what Jack has been experiencing in Michigan, what you've experienced, what I've experienced personally coming from one of the richest Black counties in the country for predominantly ever. Mm-hmm. It has always been about classism to me. Mm-hmm. And my thing is, I've never been disillusioned by it. I've always been like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I need to do what I need to do to be able to sit on that side of the table. And then from there, then true change can come to be disseminated downward. And I think it's always about that perspective for me that separates us from them. Because at the end of the day, once they cut us off at the knees with that, oh, you can't get back to that. So
I don't mean to jump in, but I do. I feel like, I don't know. Like I still think racism is higher. And I'll tell you why. Like I think about like Jay-Z or Kanye, right? Like they're billionaires right now, right?
Yeah.
But you know what they are? They're black billionaires.
Say it again.
They're black
Right.
billionaires, and it's very distinct that they make sure you know. Oh, they're the black. Like what is Elon Musk?
Let me get next
I
after
don't
this.
care. Nobody cares.
What is his race?
They
Nobody
don't care.
Right.
They don't care.
Right.
I have no idea what his race is, but I know he's a billionaire, right? Like it's never prefaced with that. Or Warren Buffett isn't the white billionaire.
It doesn't matter.
You feel what I'm saying? So I feel like race, no matter how much money you get, still comes up if you black.
I agree with
It
you.
becomes a
It
thing,
trumps
like-
classism to me.
Hold on, we ain't gonna just say black. Let me tell you what it is. Look, you can have as much money as you want, and guess what? You still labeled in America.
Yeah.
A
A
nigga.
nigga. I tell you a nigga. You a nigga.
So guess what? I heard what you said, but I totally disagree.
Right, and that's understandable.
Race is above classism because I don't give a damn how. Excuse my language. I don't care how much money you have in America. If you are black, you're still a nigga. And I didn't understand this until technically I heard one of Trick Daddy's songs, and then I actually started seeing it. And somebody else put me on to it, but it was more to the nature of kind of like he said, you can look at your NBA stars, your basketball players. These people got millions of dollars. But guess what happened to them? They can get treated just like you and I can get treated on the streets, pulled over by the police, harassed, everything. Classism doesn't matter when it comes to us.
And to your point, classes, and so that's why I agree with you two, gentlemen. Racism informs classism.
Yeah.
Like we're held down and not able to get to certain levels because they know that this country is built on classism. So
But-
the racism trumps that. How do you get the money and build the generational wealth?
Hold on.
That, I mean, you know.
I'm about to give you one. The reason why is because with us, classism is only a few. You have to remember, African American people, according to their records or according to whatever they said, if we as a people was to come together and put our money together, we would be anywhere from 8 to 12 as a country, just us alone. However, because only a few of us, or quite a few of us, got money, it still separates us because guess what? I will see myself, if I got money, I see myself still better than you. But if we moved as a whole and put our money together, guess what happens? Classism would go out the door, and so would racism, because guess what? They would have to bow down to our needs. One thing I learned from Martin Luther King, when they did the boycott and they worked together, guess what happened? Them people bowed down and said, you know what? Y'all go ahead and y'all can ride in the front of the bus. Why? Because they took control of their asset. If we learn as a people to take control of our asset, which last year they said we spent, this is only what you spent, this ain't what you have, 1.2 to 1.3 trillion dollars. Now, if you look at what you have and learn how to control it, we have been taught how to fight against each other instead of work with each other. Other people come to this country and they learn how to work with each other because they still have their culture and everything intact. We have everything with our culture, and everything has been dismantled.
Destabilized. Exactly.
We came over here with the culture. Guess what we have? Damn near 400 years later, no culture. We were
Donnie,
we was forced as a people to live together. They come over here, they decide to live together. This shows a difference. We had to live together and try to work things. This is how you got your Black Wall Streets, your other in Raleigh, North Carolina, where they had Black Wall Streets as well. But because we were forced, guess what happens? When you are not forced to do something, you'll do the opposite. Because guess what? I'm no longer held to this. I can do what I want to, and I can show you that guess what? I don't have to spend my money. I can spend my money in your stores. But because we were forced to, we will make that opposite decision to spend our money with somebody else because guess what? I was forced to do so.
Fair.
But now, if we can me personally, I would have rather had Donald Trump in the office another 4 years. Why? because we was learning to work together again. Even though with all the hate and all the bad feelings that we had, guess what? The reason why a lot of black people are buying black right now is because of those situations. If it hadn't have been for that, we wouldn't be just buying black. We wouldn't even thought about buying black. We would still be buying. Look, Mr. Charlie's ice is still colder than the black man's down the street.
But I feel like we did do a lot of buy black.
Not as much.
But because I definitely couldn't tolerate Trump in office another second.
You might not couldn't
No.
You may tell you what, you could tolerate it because you tolerated the first 4 years. I hate to say it that way, but let's be honest. Look, you might not have liked him being in there, but guess what? It pushed us to be more together than it did anything. The same way that Jim Crow pushed us to be together because we had to. Remember, what you're dealing with is feelings. We have to say forget feelings and learn to move past our feelings and learn to move reasonably.
I don't feel like we needed Donald Trump to be a catalyst to move or mobilize black people. No, I feel like we've been mobilized way before him. Now, do we have ebbs and flows? And the thing is the consistency, but I will never attribute that to Donald Trump and him being in office. I'm talking
about the racism, period. The racism, it started during Obama's era. You got to remember.
It started before that.
Hold on, no, it's been way before that. But I'm only talking about what happened is that we as a people forgot that this stuff was like that. You got to remember, a lot during from the just say 70s, 80s, just say 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s. Most of that stuff, most of your people would have said things didn't change. I'll be 40 this year, and even I thought it had changed. A dude asked me while I was in prison. He said, "Yo, do you think racism has changed?" And I said, "Yeah." Until I seen a white boy get on TV from at Oklahoma State or Oklahoma University, somewhere like that, and he said, "Look," he said that they had a what is SAE is their fraternity. They said there would never be a nigga in SAE, blah blah blah. It was a whole little mantra that they had. However, he was only 21 years old. This was an eye-awakening moment for me. And I can only speak for me. I can't speak for the majority or anybody else. But I realized then that guess what? If we, and this was in 2016, I want to say, if we as a people don't wake up and realize what's going on, guess what happens? The same, you are gonna get Jim Crow back again. Because guess what? We get into a comfortable state instead of realizing that guess what? This stuff is never ended. It was only being perpetuated in a covert situation opposed to an overt situation.
Go ahead, Law.
Well, I actually wanted to just I was like really thinking about Donnie's point, and I actually think Donnie, going back to like your thoughts about triage, and he might be a little more on point than what it would seem on the surface, right? I think as an emotional, visceral thing that we can identify, I feel like racism feels worse, but I think racism in America has always been a tool to maintain class and capitalism in this country.
And it helps.
So, right, which in a sense makes it worse. It's almost like who's worse? Is it the puppet or the ventriloquist, right? Mm-hmm. We see the words coming out of the puppet's mouth, and the puppet is the thing that gets all the attention, but it's the ventriloquist that's doing all the work. And I go back to this Lyndon Johnson quote: "If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pockets. Hell, give him somebody to look down on. Hell, he'll empty his pockets for you."
Exactly.
So I feel like in that way, like, I mean, he was very telling. That's a very true quote from Lyndon Johnson that says, like, and the thing is, the reason why slavery was able to endure for so long in the way that it was is because white folk in this country were getting poor. They were becoming poorer, but in order to justify to these other poor white people why they shouldn't be mad at the rich white people who had slaves, because basically, if I have a slave, guess what I'm not doing? I'm not employing your ass, right? Which means you're not making money. You can't feed your family. But in order to do that, I have to convince you that, wait, these people are animals. And if we don't control them, they'll rape your daughters.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They'll harm your families. And this is the Lord's work, right? The curse of Ham says that we should, slaves, obey your masters. These were like straight up real tactics that were used to convince white people that you should not only not pity these people, you should appreciate the fact that we're saving you from them to such a degree that at the times, one of the most famous rebellions in America was Bacon's Rebellion, where slaves, poor whites, and Native Americans
worked together,
teamed up. The government massacred that because they knew the greatest threat was the disillusionment or the
unity,
the tearing down, the unity, the tearing down of the notion that, hey, racism is a thing that should divide us. You know what I mean? They knew that they needed to maintain that. And if there were any group of people who was preaching otherwise,
get them out of there.
Out of there. And it was all to maintain wealth. It was all to maintain wealth. So I don't know. I think that's an interesting thing to think about.
I hear that point, but I think that in a sense, I don't know, backs the point about racism. Like, I think it's a powerful tool being used right now. Like, whether it's to hide what's happening, with the ventriloquist or not, it's still the most powerful tool that people use. Like you just said, that tool can be used to make someone believe that money isn't important as long as you have someone to look down on.
Right.
Like, you have someone to look down on, and I'm using racism as that tool to make you think that, right? If people got over racism and unified, then it would be like, whoa, wait a minute. Now we got to do something different and destroy it because what? Y'all have got, you've killed our most powerful tool. You feel what I'm saying? Like, I feel like it's still I agree. And like Donnie, what I was hearing, I think through the conversation was classism might be an issue in our own community. Maybe it's
definitely
in the Black community.
Anybody.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about like movement, like, I think in moving up, like, is there that issue in the Black community so much that it divides us? Because speaking to what Carlos was talking about, he was like, we get money, but then we don't unify and use that power together sometimes.
I wanted to
just do what we want to do. So I feel like,
hold on, even worse, classism exists. Like, we'll get money and then we'll act towards Black people the same way white people act, and we criticize them. So we act racist towards. So I don't know. So then it's like, so and again, does it go back to money?
And then you also got to look at it from a perspective, as I said before, too. You got to look at it from the lens of destabilization. We are the most destabilized group ethnically, period.
What's your reason?
Still looking at it from a lens as though we're equals, whereas we are destabilized.
We messed up.
So if you look at it from that perspective, you can understand what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that racism is not dangerous. It's highly dangerous. But that's like saying and when we talk about the pandemic is the problem. Well, the problem isn't the pandemic. The problem is people don't know how to pivot in the pandemic.
There you go.
I'm just saying. So the reality, again, when you start talking numbers, again, you talk facts, you talk facts. You talk numbers, you talk numbers. You gotta know which lens you're looking at through when you talk in either one.
Now,
you know what I mean? Now, I think that I agree with everybody, and I do not disagree with anyone on this panel's point with regard to racism at all. It is very detrimental to our culture. It is definitely very even more detrimental to our race. But if you sit back and choose to believe the nuggets that they throwing you about it, then that's on you. Because I was fed the same nugget, and I rise, Toni Morrison or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day,
and
like
my Angelou, still I rise.
There you go. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? But my point is that at the end of the day, you have to have an education towards what's actually going on. You can't be emotional about it. I see everything that's going on because I feel I'm compartmentalized via race, via finances, via class, via the whole nine. But every day I get up and I walk out the front door, and it's me versus everybody.
Let me give you a quick point after you finish.
Well, I'm good. Please go ahead.
Okay, this is what I want to show you. Okay, if classism was the catalyst, I would say, put it this way: we are still the biggest commodity that America use in America.
Agreed.
Reason why I say that: 1.2 to 1.3 trillion dollars. We bring more in than anybody or anything in America. Okay, using and adding that, if logic played a part, who you think they would cater to the most because we bring more money? It would be African Americans, correct?
Depends on your financial savvy.
Hold on, you got to remember, as a whole, I'm only speaking as wholes now. I'm not speaking in separates, because as a whole, this is what we bring in and this is what we spend. Matter of fact, now we bring in, this is what we spend. So I would treat you better if I had this common sense. I would treat you better because I know this is what you're gonna do. But we are treated worse because we are black, because we are what's the word I want to use? Descendants of slaves. We are treated worse because guess what? We was the catalyst then in slavery, and we are the catalyst now, still out of slavery. But guess what? We're not doing. We're not putting this stuff together, and because we're not putting this stuff together, they will never respect us. You want me to tell you the reason why they look? The Asians. The reason why they respecting the Asians, and they done created a law for the Asians right now. And we done been through, God knows, way more oppression in the last 400 years than the Asians have over here. Because guess what? The Asians are together. They still using race as a class when it comes to us.
The only thing I'm gonna say to you about that, I do not disagree. The only thing I'm gonna say to you is I am absolutely a direct descendant of a very prominent figure in slavery and upbringing. I'm a direct descendant. I'm also a direct descendant of Native Americans. I have yet to receive any financial compensation nor any guidance in either one of those realms.
I am in both as well. I don't know about much of my Native American, but I do know African descent. Yes.
And all I'm saying to you is that with regard to that, it is a fact that people who come from other countries that are granted asylum, they have their own programs that they are allotted, and they choose to do what they do with those grants and opportunities to come and be assimilated into our culture. They may, and also what I believe, I'm not 100% certain, but they are also instructed as to what they could do with said assistance. Whereas we are not granted the education to know what we can do or what assistance we have provided to us to make us better.
One, to keep us dumb. I got to be honest. Look, most of your African Americans, yes, we smart, we know how to do things, we get into every field. If you take all your African Americans out of every field right now, guess what would happen? America would drop. However, because we are dependent, we have nowhere else to go, we have nothing else to do. This is our only home. You got to remember, Haiti is a guy who just one of their dudes just took a French official, and he basically said, look, y'all owe us money. We can't do that because guess what? This ain't our land. We don't own this. They can do that. There's a difference between the people now. So the reason why we can't act the way certain people act is because where else do we have to go? We are like bars. We don't have we don't, even though we have the economic structure and the money that we can fund together, guess what? We still have nowhere to go. We have nobody that we are bartering and trading with as a whole. You have to treat our people as a nation. Unless we are treating our people as a nation where we are bartering and trading with other people, guess what? We ain't got nothing going on. We have to literally structure our people as a pyramid. I mean, from a head executive all the way down to an army, and your army will be your gang members.
But one thing I will say is that in America, where we are now, where we are all a part of the culture and a part of the society, a Carlos Walker presentation can be compensated just as much as a Basquiat. Same thing as the production can be can get you can accumulate the same amount as a Basquiat right now. We have the opportunity to do so. What is your financial savvy? Not talking about you, just talking about the acumen to be able to speak that and be able to navigate yourself through that's when you start talking about the Jay-Z's and the Kanye's, to be able to navigate to get themselves to be in that consideration, in that bracket, in that conversation, in that class. This is what I'm talking about, classes. I'm not talking about classism as far as being relegated to, oh, you down here in the lower thirds. I'm talking about the fearlessness to be able to put yourself in, and the education to be able to position yourself to be in the conversation. Lil Wayne can go to Donald Trump and sit in the White House. Kanye can sit with Donald Trump in the White House to say, hey, what's up?
No, I'm not disputing you. I'm not disputing that, but this is what we have to do as a people. Because I can put myself in that position. I put myself in Jay-Z position and get to the NFL or do whatever he have done to do that. But guess what I do? It's only me. I'm only speaking for so-called people. Me personally, if I was to do anything, I would structure us where we would be similar to the United States. We would vote our own community. We would vote our own president to go and speak for us and step into these positions. And guess what? Make sure that this person has the benefit or the ideology to benefit the whole community. You see what I'm saying? That's when you are doing something. Because right now, Jay-Z going in that office doing something for us, he's thinking about himself. We have to work as a whole community.
What did you guys think? Because for me, at this point, I don't have much hope for us ever being that organized, right? I
understand.
But what I do see is that there are a growing number of prominent Black people who, as Tiffany said, have seats at the table, and there are ways in which I like them to speak more effectively. And I do think that in the ways that we saw Georgia turn, that we have a voting kind of army. We have a sense of power. And right now, to a degree, I would say not to the degree that we should. I think we used it to have some things done by Joe Biden to reflect that, yes, I respect the power of that community. What I like to see is, how do we make sure that those people who are in those rooms, again, aren't, like you said, Carlos, people who really honestly are looking out for themselves. Like, there are certain people who like being in the room because they're powerful. They like being in the powerful room, but they're not willing to challenge authority in those rooms. You know what I mean? It needs some very prominent folks.
With it.
Right. So when we talk about like Charlemagne and Diddy and even Cube and kind of what happened at that time, which
now Cube, from what I've heard and what I've read, I look, don't get me wrong, I like what I read about his proposal. Do I know if he's staying firm on that? Hopefully he is.
Right.
But I can't say. Jay-Z, look, we do know he's swap. He's for himself for the most part. How do you ask the question? How do you hold these people accountable? That's a good question. Maybe we should vote. Maybe we should learn how to. Maybe we should learn how to vote these people into an office that holds for us.
And the way to hold, in my opinion, folks. Well, I had one thing about holding folks accountable to us, as far as them not just being out for self. I mean, it's usually hit them in their pockets.
Yes.
to me, it's like, oh, you're not going to, okay, well, cool. Then
We
as
gonna
a
boycott
whole,
you.
say it again.
We gonna boycott you.
Yeah. I mean, I know people don't like cancel culture, but some of cancel culture is very effective.
You
Like
damn right it is.
not buying anything you put out, not buying from your shoes to your shirt to your anything.
Look,
And then it's like whether it's genuine or not is a whole nother issue. But sometimes I don't care if it's genuine, if it gets to the point and it's effective, and
I
you
agree.
start to be accountable
I can agree
and
with
you
you.
start to speak up for us as African Americans.
I can agree with you because what
Yeah.
happens, as you said, we hold them accountable and point blank period. You're gonna do what you're supposed to do because guess what? You'll get canceled.
Yeah. And that's to I think Donnie's point about the money and how the power of money. Now I never will disagree that classism is huge in this country. I just think it does. I think racism does trump it, but I mean I have another piece in the pie in my opinion, which is sexism. So I
There's
don't.
that.
It's that's another huge issue that
Mhm,
is unique just to women,
mhm.
and we can't to really put in perspective how that is also something that's used to hold us down, hold us back as African Americans, especially Black women, is because we're Black and we're women. So our pay isn't equal. Our opportunities aren't there. And so because to some folks, not only are you, a nigga, you're a woman. So it's like, and that's a whole nother game changer and issue that we need to do to kind of mobilize as African Americans is making sure that it's not just hey, we need to mobilize as Blacks, but we have to mobilize as Black men and women. We're very divided when it comes to us, and I think that's because of society pits Black men and women against each other,
Yep.
in my opinion, because they know that we're stronger unified, and they know if we come together, Black men and women, and really hold each other down, then there's so much more that we could accomplish. So I definitely feel like you see all these narratives out there about what Black women are doing or saying to Black men, what Black men are doing and saying to Black women. I'm not saying there are some issues out there, and I still think some of that is just the residual effects of racism. But I think a lot of that is used to divide us as well. Which keeps us from mobilizing as a whole unit. Like, let's make them feel like their men don't protect them and don't care about them. Let's make them feel like their women don't lift them up, don't have their back. And it's like, my grandparents were married for 71 and a half years. They died 10 months to the day apart. And they gave me in my opinion, the blueprint of Black men and women and successfully holding each other down. But society don't ever want to show that narrative.
They don't show
Or
that.
tell that narrative, tell that story.
Hey, my grandparents the same way.
Right.
Definitely the same way. Listen, I mean, this conversation is amazing. Like, I think we can go on for like another few hours on this, but I do want to respect everybody's time. I'm gonna throw one more question out there, and then we're gonna close out. Maybe we can get a part 2 of this going. Maybe we can get Jack on here to do the part 2. Because this is what I was hoping the conversation would be: challenging. Like, we don't always gotta agree, but having the conversation is important. So I'm gonna throw one more question out there to get thoughts, and then we'll close out. So what are your thoughts about the argument that Officer Nicholas Reardon was justified in using deadly force in shooting 16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant? There's been a lot of talk around this. There's a lot of different opinions. Lots to say about this one, but like, throw it out there. What we got?
Who wants to
start? I'll say this.
Okay, shit.
My first reaction, honestly, was when I heard the description, and I heard how it happened, was, oh my goodness, they just Tamir Riced her, right? Tamir Rice, there's 2.5 seconds, boom, get out, freeze, boom. They John Crawford her, you know what I mean? John Crawford, and Walmart, police see you, boom. Then I saw the video, and a cousin of mine who was in law enforcement said, what would you have expected to happen or wanted to happen if your daughter was on the other end of the knife? And it was like, now, of course, in my mind, in that situation, I'm like, well, why couldn't you be like armed with a taser?
There you
Now
go.
she explained to me, well, in situations like that, the tasers aren't as effective as people think. She was saying, like, so that they have people where tasers don't work. So if somebody has a knife and you tase them, they can still lunge with the knife, kind of thing. So that complicated it for me, honestly. Like, this is one of those things where it's different than Breonna Taylor, it's different than Tamir Rice, it's different than Auntiana Jefferson. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think he's going to get off. I think honestly, it's one of those ones where I feel like I don't think we should become so woke that we aren't awakened to the realities of the fights that maybe we shouldn't pick. This may not be one of those fights we lean too hard in. This is different because the idea was like, I'm not against all police killings. I'm not. It's just me. My family's law enforcement in New York. You know what I mean? That's what they are. Corrections officers, POs. I'm not against all police killings. I'm against wrongful police killings when you escalate situations, when you don't de-escalate, when you stop people over harmless infractions, and then you raise things to that level. This one was complicated. This is one of those fog of war things.
Yeah. Lawrence, you hit the nail on the head. This one is complicated for me too. It is not, to me, the typical Black Lives Matter situation, a nonviolent offense, etc. And here's my thing. My fear was somebody's gonna die, period. My girlfriends and I just talked about it at brunch earlier. You have a young lady who was lunging with a knife, right? I don't want the other young lady stabbed to death. I don't, because then we're looking at the police like, why didn't you do anything? The other issue is I don't want the young lady Micaiah shot to death either. So my thing is, as far as reimagining or reimaging police to help, with really de-escalating or in very difficult situations, and also thinking about we have to help. They need to be trained with these type of situations, mental health, all of that. I feel like needs to be started fresh, right? But my thing about Micaiah is she needed to be stopped, right? I don't agree with the 4 shots. That's my issue. I do have law enforcement come. My brother's military, a retired lieutenant colonel. I know they're trained to shoot to kill. I think that's something that needs to also be adjusted. That needs to be changed. Shoot somebody in the leg, shoot them, whatever. They shoot to kill stuff is killing me. That's the issue. And then I said to my girlfriend, who is white earlier, I said, my other issue is if she was Emily lunging at Sarah, she wouldn't have been shot 4 times. When he shot her once, okay, to stop her from stabbing another girl to death, absolutely. But the 4 times is the excessive piece for me. That's my issue with it.
I agree.
And I look at it, and I'll take it one step further, Tiffany, too. I look at it from that LeBron courtside with Becky with the good hair. You know what I'm saying? If that was a black sister that was going at LeBron they would have just escort her out. They'd have dragged that sister out of there. Absolutely. Right. You know what I mean? And again, look, I have not served with any major entity and to represent the United States government. But I'm gonna tell you right now, the one thing I have learned is how to use my firearm. And my thing is this: at the end of the day, as you said, the testament to you, Tiffany, is that I'm gonna shoot you in the leg or something. You won't get this attention real quick. She's 16. You can't disarm a 16-year-old. There's something wrong with you. Now, unless she's like Big Shirley from What's Happening or something like that, you know what I mean? That's a whole different vibe, right? But I'm a 16-year-old. I'm pretty sure I can disarm that 16-year-old without any kind of bullets whatsoever. Again, shed any kind of shade on anybody else. But in the scheme of things, like you said, there are so many other ways that you can handle a situation, and without that kind of violence, that DEFCON 1 type of situation, and that's the thing with it. And you're talking about somebody's child. Again, we're talking about a 21-year-old who's an adult that makes their own decision. You got to live and breathe by it. First of all, we talk about loss of life. We talking about somebody that's a minor,
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's so many other things. You know what I mean?
Mental illness.
Mental illness. Like
Mental illness.
you can't. And then my thing is this: what kind of turncoat society do we live in? Is where you can get somebody like Joe Flacco because he says something dumb, and then you got this society bearing down on him. He had to apologize because he said something was dumb. That was football. But now you got all these societies saying you can't use dumb in society, but you can shoot dead a 16-year-old because of a perceived threat of violence.
Mm.
Because again, like you said, if it was Rebecca over here in Culver City, I'm telling you right now, I'm in Culver City right now. These LA folk would have, man, listen, y'all be reading about us on TV, and I just be like, I don't know what's happening. You know what I mean? So I'm saying from the perspective of, I think there is a lot to be said as far as by way of people taking things out of perspective. People they take we say you give people an inch to take a mile.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's no accountability with none of it. And they get to hide. Loss of life, you should not be able to hide because our people we're not allowed to hide. If it's a loss of life, my little brother had to serve time because of called involuntary manslaughter. He wasn't even in the car with the dude. The dude lost control of his own damn car. My brother had to go to jail for that. You feel what I'm saying? So we're talking about something that had nothing to do with, I am going to put you down.
Mm-hmm.
And these people, nah, sorry, U.S. government.
Mm.
Now, me personally, I look at it from this standpoint. We're not even going to use age because guess what? When they first pull up, they may not know how old a person may be.
Okay, fair. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But what you do have to realize is that you're dealing with a female. You're dealing with a bunch of females. Just say she did stab him. More than likely, it would have been a bad wound. I doubt if she would have killed him. He could have hit her with a taser, and I can almost 9 times out of 10, I can't say 10 times out of 10, guarantee you that taser would have dropped her and dropped the weapon. There are men that they have showed constantly. Y'all probably seen the same videos I've seen on Instagram where men have been hit with tasers, and guess what the knife or the gun go? On the ground. These are white men. So with me, I'm not in agreement with the shooting itself because guess what? There's different. Look, they could have grabbed her, did anything. This is a woman. I'm not saying the woman ain't strong because I know a woman right now that can lift 185 pounds, and I know some men that can't. But at the same time, I'm almost guaranteed they could have took that girl down without her either harming that girl or without killing her. So never can I be in agreement with her shooting, with him shooting or him killing her at any point in my mind, because guess what? There are different aspects that somebody could have taken.
Yeah, I feel like that decision of that death decision is becoming too easy for people to make now, with just disregard for life. And then as details of the story are coming out, it makes it even harder. Apparently they were all in the same house, and the argument was over housekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody, they told her to clean the house, and she said no, got mad. And the foster mom is they fight like this all the time, and they're expected to get to this. And I think about that, but I think about what you said as a father, and this is weird. I'm gonna put it out there, but it's the thought I had. I feel like if you were there and it was your daughter, right, and someone else were lunging at your daughter, and you were armed with a gun, I don't think you would have killed the other girl.
No.
And this is just me. And this is me knowing you, Law. I think you would have stopped her,
but not shot her and killed her.
But I don't think she would be dead right now. You know what I mean? And I think that's because when I think of you as a person and your compassion for people, that would come out, and you would find a way to stop it without having to kill her. And I think the compassion for people, especially Black people, is being lost as I had no other choice
I
to
agree.
shoot her 4 times.
4 times.
Like, I
Right.
had to shoot 4 times to stop her. Like,
Right.
He had to be a coked
Yeah,
out.
I agree. I agree.
even if you
Yeah.
shot, and it hit the car that was right beside her, she probably would have been like, "Oh,"
She would have
like,
stopped.
Stopped her.
Mhm.
you know
Right,
what I'm
right.
saying? So the fact that people are coming up with the argument, and I get it, he probably will get off because
No,
they
he
will
won't
say
get off.
under.
I
They're
was
going
about
to
to
say
say, I
under
think he
law.
will get off.
Under law, they're going to say he was justified, right?
Mhm.
And that sucks. But I just think going back to the training, Tiffany, like you said, like going to, that shoot to kill mentality. I just think that there needs to be more training around either how to de-escalate or how to shoot to not kill, but
Right.
to,
I don't even think there needs to be
handicap
more.
someone in that position. Like, I just think the compassion for people is being lost.
I
Right.
agree.
That choice in that moment is kill.
I ain't gonna
Right.
say compassion
Yeah.
for people. It's compassion
So
for that kid.
question, and my other question for you guys around that, where this is concerned, how do you feel about because my girlfriend brought this point up and I was thinking the same thing, the adults that were there. But there's some accountability there. These are
Yeah.
children. These
Yeah.
are teenagers. We all know how it feels to be a teenager and you got hormones raging and you got there. I feel like there's certain accountability that the adults standing around, the foster mother, all of those folks have some shared responsibility, in my opinion, around
I
this.
agree.
True, but
Supposedly, some of the people who came over there to I guess attack the girl wasn't children. It was adults. I'm not fully aware of the whole situation, but
They were standing around watching what was happening.
Right.
well,
All of the girls,
I'm
no
sure
one came
somebody
there to attack her.
with a
They were
knife. Guess
all
what they
there.
should have done? Grab her.
Say it again.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Somebody
he got
seen her with a knife, and guess what they should have done? Grabbed her.
Right.
grabbed her, tackled her, like do what you
Yeah.
gotta do in that
Well,
moment.
But
Right.
again, people are trying. Again, looking at it from a perspective of, if I'm going to protect my estate, right? The state meaning my children in that situation, and somebody else's kid is attacking my kid. At the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, they be like, "Well, I'm not going to get involved unless they harm my children." And if they coming from my children, at the end of the day, I'm gonna do everything I can to shield them, but I'm not going to perpetuate the violence toward said person. That's just being like the just realistically status quo answer to me with regard to it, because again, it sounds great. Oh, well, what you should have did was,
I get that.
you know what I mean? But in the grand scheme of things, it's like, okay, at the end of the day, I'm gonna tell you right now. So if my kids is here with me and kids attacking my kids, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? And
Our society right now is like you said, if you don't have anything vested, our society now does this.
Right.
This is what we do.
That's the issue. I feel like
That's
as
what we do.
African Americans, as Black people, it used to be where a neighborhood was part of your family.
There you
Like
go.
if back in the day, if somebody saw Timmy running out with a knife, it's if they have permission to tackle her, and then be like, and when I let your mom and your dad know, they'll be ready to kill you. You know what I'm saying? Like nowadays, especially as Black folk, we take too much of a hands-off approach. I'm not gonna get involved when it comes, especially with other folks' kids. But that's not how it used to be. It used to be a village mentality.
Guess
True,
what? Back
yeah.
in the day, they didn't care whether your mama knew it or not. Look, they was gonna beat your tail anyway.
Right.
Right.
Like, girl, what you doing with that knife? Running, you know what I'm saying? Like right there in the middle of it. Like, are you crazy? That type of intervention. Like, I'm just wondering where was that? Because it seemed like there were people standing around. And if the foster mother's saying they all lived in that house, I think the others supposedly had already moved out or something, but would come back and forth. My thing is, it's not okay to be like, well, they argue like this all the time.
But what you don't, but the thing, this is my thing as a part is where it's foggy, because you don't know. See, my thing is, and I got personal family members right now, and I call them by name, but I ain't gonna do that. But like flat out, they be like, "Don't touch my child. You don't know what you're talking about." Regardless of whatever mischievous nature these kids is, don't touch my child. You don't know nothing about my child. I'm like, blah, blah, blah.
Hey, Donnie, you know what? I would take that argument and I will take that fussing out to not have to go to your kid's funeral. You feel what I'm saying?
Well, they would have to.
I'll accept it. If you're gonna yell at me, cuss me out. But guess what? Your child is still here for you to be mad about, to be upset about, to cuss me out about, yeah, I'm gonna do that. If I'm there and I can do something, and I work with kids, and I do that system, and like if I can do something, I'm probably going to do something, and I'll risk the fact that you may want to give me a tongue lashing.
But again, and I like I said, and again, this is why we have our situation. You know what I mean? And I already understand that exactly that's the type of thing that you would do. You know what I mean? And the same thing if it was law kids. Same thing as anybody else. You know what I mean? Like we have that kind of thing. But there's a lot of people in society that don't think like that. And at the end of the day, like, oh well, at the end of the day, oh okay, well shoot, you know what? Well, I don't have nothing to do with it because you know so much about your child, and so forth and so on. And now that kid is in the rules. So
the other factor too is in the video you see the girl ran right towards the cop, and he didn't attempt to try to physically do anything. He took his gun out right away. Yep. Like as soon as she was running towards him, his gun came straight out. And then now there's another video out where there's a white man coming towards a cop with a knife, and the white man he just backs up. The cop backs up and is like trying to contain him, but he never went for his gun. You feel what I'm saying? So the reality is, and this cop had been on he had been a policeman for 2 years, right? So he's relatively new, right? But his first instinct was, I'm gonna pull my gun. But we don't know what I'm saying. So I'm just thinking about like a couple, like even so. Let's say it's not one of the adults standing around. Even when the law enforcement person came, he even like his reaction was just like, oh, like I'm pulling my gun out. If she doesn't comply, she's gonna die.
Well, you also
right. It's automatic.
Like that's the thought. If she doesn't comply, she's gonna die. You don't shoot 4 times thinking, oh, I just want to stop her from, hopefully she'll drop it. No, you were trying to kill her.
Right.
No, and I agree with that. That's excessive.
Right.
Take this.
Right. That's the issue. The 4 times for me, especially. Even if you want to say, well, he was running at me with a knife. Like that's a violent offense. All right. I mean, it's hard we already know it was very difficult to feel like we were going to get justice with George Floyd. And he was on his stomach with a knee in his neck for over 9 minutes. But we definitely know with this situation, she's running towards him with a knife. My issue is the use of the excessive force. Why are you feeling like to stop this 16-year-old girl, I must shoot 4 times? To me, you're not a good police officer or shot. Because she was coming when she's right there. You don't take 4 shots to stop that girl. So you don't. That's the excessive issue.
She didn't just come at him because she actually went off and went towards the girl.
So, but you know what, Devin said something that I think is powerful.
I want you to take this into perspective. 9 times out of 10, when you see one of these police shootings dealing with African American men or even women, most of the time they are running away opposed to running towards. And guess what happens? They're being deaded. That probably ain't even the word, but they're being killed. And to me, America has scared themselves when it comes to African American people, period. I don't care if it's male or female.
Oh yeah. Chris Rock had a good joke. He said the one good thing about being a black person is you can always bluff that you have a gun. You can be butt naked with your hands up. They'd be like, yo, he got a gun between his ass cheeks. You know what I mean?
Right.
But Devin said something that was profound, and I think this is how we need to start framing it. He said, no, he was trying to kill her. And I think that's what we forget. If you're trained to kill, it's one thing to be like, yes, we're trained to shoot to kill. So if you're trained to shoot to kill, that means I am trying to kill you at that point. And I think we don't ever put it in that. We don't ever say, wait, no. So you're saying you were trying to kill her. That's what it was. That sounds very different than I was trained to shoot to kill. No, that means you were trained to try to kill. You're trying to kill us.
And you can even look at it from the perspective and take that same argument and juxtapose it against somebody like Mike Tyson, where if you train to fight and you're a fighter, you are not allowed to engage with people in the public. Because if you do, you get served flat out. Exactly. because these are the weapons of destruction, right?
Exactly.
So if you actually if you trained as a deputy or some sort of law enforcement to take somebody down, you're trained to kill, you should have the same wrath as somebody that is like a fighter.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And like Tiffany said, at the end of the day, like I said, look, I'm not a deputy or anything like that. But I guarantee you, like this, come for me, your knees, your legs are very susceptible. I'm very good. I will kick you with your knees and your legs at least. You won't think about it first.
Let's add on to this.
Yeah.
How many black officers actually kill either white or black people?
Right.
That's a very good. That's a number that
Let me look up. I don't know.
But you guys
I
know
have to
though.
look that up.
You want to equate this? Guess what? You got more white officers that's doing killings of more black people than probably any black officer or any other officer ever done. So what is the reason? You have to psychologically deal with this, because me personally, if I was to do anything and I was the head of anything, I would literally just I ain't saying just defund the police. Just get new police. You got to retrain all police, because you cannot take a person and think that their training is just going click. You have to just put new officers in place.
Yeah.
I mean,
And you know, to that point,
go ahead, Law. Sorry.
I'm about to say with the training, because that's one thing we keep hearing. Everything, oh, we need to new train. No. But Devin's saying, what Nick is saying about training or compassion, I can't train that in you. But what I can do, so we don't need to train and de-escalate. Everybody with any common sense knows how to de-escalate a situation. You know how we know how you know? Because you do it white folk all the time. You're always de-escalating with white people.
That's correct.
So it's not that you don't know how to de-escalate. So what we need, going back, Tiffany, to structures of integrity, here's the deal. You do not shoot to kill. That's the training we need to do. You do not shoot to kill. You shoot to immobilize. And the only training that your ass need to be doing is we need to triple your accuracy with your gun under stressful situations. We need to keep that once a week, twice a month, whatever it needs to be, so that you can shoot to immobilize.
You know how
not shoot to kill.
Can't learn new tricks.
Yeah.
Have you heard that saying
before? Yeah.
Don't keep teaching these. Don't try to teach these old dogs new tricks. Guess what? Just get new dogs.
But here's the thing. Look, here's the thing. He was a cop for 2 years. He was
new. He was new.
Yeah. He was a new dog. That was the problem. It's the training. The training that they're giving them is to have a disregard for life. Like, I don't know who posted it. Law, did you post that? There was a video of a police training, and the guy's like, hey, if someone dies, hey, it is what it is.
Right.
He was like, it's not that bad. At the end of the day, it's not that bad.
It's not that bad.
He bragged. He said, you go home, you have the best sex you ever had with your wife after killing somebody.
And it's all
like, this is a dude who's training people.
That's the demilitarized thing. That's a militarization. That's a mobilization.
But this is what I'm trying to tell you. Look, 2 years is too long. That means, guess what? That's 2 years of training he done learned every day or whenever he did. He learned that, and this is what he's used to. They said it takes 21 days for something to become a habit. Guess what? He had 2 years of it. Get rid of him.
And my thing about military, because like I said, my brother's a retired lieutenant colonel, and he talks about military training. But there's a difference, and like he will say, in the military and police force. Like if he was out in Afghanistan. He was like, he has a big issue with people being able to get military style weapons. He was like, this don't make no sense. What the hell you need with a AR? He was like, what is this? You know, and so it's like people have this idea, to y'all's point about that, you know, shoot to kill. There's just a disregard for life. And that to me does need to be scrapped. And if it means you basically get new folks who actually, and to me, you know, there's a whole mental health piece I think needs to be a part of it. Because you got folks out here who have mental health issues, and police need to know how to deal with them. And then you have some people who are getting in this force with psychological issues. I'm like, there are so many of them who I feel like, I'm like, how you ever pass a psyche valve to become a police officer? Because something is mentally wrong with you. So it's like, you should not be someone. And my girlfriend said today, she's like, well, that was a highly stressful situation. And I said, I hate to say it, but some jobs you signed up for and you cannot use it as an excuse. A heart surgeon can't be like, I was highly stressed
Bingo.
out.
That's exactly
So
what I was about to say.
I'm sorry, I killed him. I just, split second decision.
And
So
guess
it's like,
what?
you can't do that.
And even with that, like
add
you
on to what
said,
you just said, we black. We can't change outfits.
and even with that, Tiffany, like you said, with regard to, let's say for instance that you are to pick a firearm for fair firearm as a bystander and not as a part of an institution. The reality of it is that more stricter psyche now should be on that as well. It's
Right.
not necessarily that you can't obtain one, but should you be seen fit to be able to wield a gun or wield an opportunity to present yourself, that should be more in place with the NRA. But that's the thing. The NRA is going to impede that. They're going to create a stern blockade.
Right.
So,
All right. Look, we've almost hit the 2-hour mark. I appreciate this conversation. It is exactly what I thought it would be. Like I said, I definitely think we need to do a part 2 to this conversation. I appreciate all like your opinions, like your thoughts. Very, very good conversation. Did a lot for me, a lot of nuggets for me to think about. What we want to do right now is just give you a quick chance to talk about like what you got coming up next, where people can find you online. So what do you got coming up next, Tyler Street? Carlos, what do you got coming up next, and where can people find you online? Either Carlos or Tiffany, go ahead.
For Tyler Street Films, so we have Catharsis already out there, which you guys know, Lawrence did an amazing job. It's under the Tyler Street Films moniker, but Lawrence tells a story of what happens after, we don't get the justice that we deserve. And I mean, it's super dope. And so that's already out. And then we have an animated short film coming out called Skin Like Mine that's based on my children's book. And then we have a film, Darling Nikki, in conjunction with another Hamptonian who's an actor. Stanley Autry is one of the executive producers for that. And that is, I don't like to give the subject away because I don't want to give the storyline away, but it does delve into a very taboo issue in Black culture. So we have those things coming, and you can follow us at we have our individual accounts. I'm at Miss Tiffany L on Instagram, and then we have at Flipped Indie Film and at Tyler Street Films in Law. I'm passing it to you.
I can never remember my IG.
Law Divine Right.
Yes.
she knows yours. Right.
Yeah, I could never. I was no IG Law for a long time. No IG Law. But no, that's what we have coming out. So yeah, looking forward to Skin Like Mine and especially Tiffany being able to like tap into that children's, again, which she started out into that children's market, but being able to like, go there from a media perspective, that's dope. So really looking forward to that.
Well, as far as me, I do have a comic book I'm working on. It's called The Chronicles of Jacob King. It's revolutionary. I'll put it that way. That I also have another book that I am currently kind of trying to start. It is called, give me a second, The Invisible Man. I feel like it would be geared towards people who are unknown. They have a talent, but nobody sees them. They're working at a regular job, and the ideology behind it is that you have people that you come across every day. They may work at McDonald's, Burger King, anywhere, and you don't know who they are. And they may be someone that, guess what, may do something. So these are the 2 projects I'm working on right now, and I'm still trying to get Walk a Mile in Our Shoes out and the book What If. To find out where to see me on Instagram, it is Walkers_Gallery 2. My website is called walkersgallery.net, and these are the places that you can find me at.
All right.
Oh, and I do want to I appreciate you inviting me on here, and I
No,
thank
we
y'all, Tyler Fumes, for having the same idea. We working on the
Yeah.
same path. I'm hoping that maybe I can be an asset to y'all in the future.
Yeah. No, that's dope. That's dope.
Absolutely.
Can't wait to see the book.
definitely appreciate all of you guys coming on. Tyler Street Films, Carlos Walker. Definitely hope you guys collaborate and connect. I'll get your contacts so that can happen. Also, like, appreciate the conversation today. As I said, what if it flipped? What a conversation! What an episode! Definitely think we're gonna do part 2. I'm also excited to say I'm the only one who didn't get kicked off the whole show. So shout outs to my router and my internet. I appreciate it. But like, definitely great show. And look forward to part 2.
All right.
All right, brothers.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having us,
y'all.
you guys.
Appreciate you.
No doubt.
Donnie got to close us out. Donnie, close us out.
Listen, guys, great show. This is the type of stuff that we need to have as people, as a culture, as brothers and sisters. We really need to have these kind of open conversations regardless. And we need to support each other, because in the grand scheme of things, we won't know about what the next person's doing if we don't have the conversation, if we can't big up each other. You know,
Right.
you want to go out there, they Kendrick Lamar got a new album out, but you don't want to celebrate Tyler Street got his joint out, or Carlos Walker got a joint. We need to do better as people. And it starts from there. And then you can work on the other stuff that comes from that. That's just my belief in it. At the end of the day, these are all celebrated people. These people are fantastic and amazing in their own right. And everybody should celebrate them and give them their flowers while they with us. For real.
There you go.
With regard to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, please, go ahead.
No, I was just going to throw a reminder out there. So that's why I said go for it.
All right. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. We are Two Flu West. Please like and subscribe. Make sure y'all like and subscribe on every one of our social medias, because this is the platform that we need to have. It's very imperative and it's necessary. In order for the healing to begin, like I said, triage is the best form of recovery, period. Accurate triage is the best form of recovery. With that being said, I'm Donnie B. GotDaBeats. It's my brother Nicholas Baker, man. We got Tyler Street Films, Carlos Walker Wong. Make sure y'all like us and subscribe as well. And that's that. Baker, what you got?
Next week is we start season 3. We got Hey Tony TV. You might have seen his videos. He's the principal of Quarterbrick High, comedian. If you haven't, go check out Hey Tony TV. We start our season 3 next week.
Yeah, exactly. And make sure y'all stay tuned to that. But again, like and subscribe. Yeah, there is no us if there is no we. You know what I mean? And we meaning y'all too. So thank y'all for y'all support and getting us to season 3. Thank y'all for liking and supporting Tyler Street Films. Thank y'all for liking and supporting Carlos Walker. Thank y'all for liking and supporting Black culture. We are us. U.S. Period. And that's that. And as Baker said, let the planes fly. Out.
Peace.